I have had so many different guests on the sports media podcast, the Honest Something podcast, so many different people from different backgrounds to different personalities. And I just have this sneaky suspicion that the man that you're about to meet, that you're about to learn about, is incomparable to any of them. He's a larger than life personality. He is John Filippelli. He is president of production and programming and executive producer of the Yes Network. And he joins me, yes, on the Honest Something podcast. I'm Brian Fenley, a national broadcaster for different outlets. And this is a sports media podcast where we go beyond just the X's and O's of work. We're going to learn about John in a variety of different ways, or better known by his contemporaries as Flip. And Flip, as we start this conversation, I was expecting you to provide us some intro music. You're going to break out the guitar. You're going to get us going there. I know you're a man of many talents. You and the
Yeah.
guitar, that's a big part of your life. People don't know that.
I play. I mean, I'm not very good at it. I dabble in it. I think I dabble in like a lot of things. It's like it's I guess my I get bored rather easily, and I do all sorts of things to amuse myself. Many of which I can't describe here. We won't go there. But there are places things I do just to because I get bored. And guitar is one of I enjoy the guitar. I'm not very good at it, but I like it. Maybe a little later we'll break that out. But also I'm into photography. I really like taking photographs. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy that a lot. And The Yankees told me that they would next year. It would be they would allow me to exhibit my photographs at the stadium, which should be nice.
Really?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun because I met the Bleacher Creatures like 2 weeks ago. I went and spent a day with the Bleacher Creatures. I had the best time. They were so much fun. They were so I'm trying to, as you know, I start to wind down my career now. I'm starting to avail myself of different opportunities, meet different people, have different experiences, things that not that I wasn't interested in before. I just didn't really have the time before because I was just so swamped with the Yes Network and some of the other things that I'm involved with. I really didn't have the time to do to spend it in a way that doing things that I always wanted to do in many respects. So I'm trying. We all have our little bucket list. My little bucket list is very simple, just like meeting some people and going some places that I hadn't had the chance to meet, or had people hadn't had a chance to meet, or places I hadn't had a chance to go. So I'm excited about the next chapter of my life. I now have grandchildren. I have 4 little granddaughters there. I love that too. So I'm keeping pretty busy, and like I said, the job keeps me very busy, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, as we just talk things. But I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying my life. I've been very lucky. I don't for 1 minute. I count my blessings. I realize that I am very lucky in a lot of ways, I've been able to live my dream. How many people get to say that? I mean, I found a purpose for my passion. I really did, which was broadcasting, I've loved it from the minute I took the tour of NBC when I was just, my God, how many years ago was that? It's like 50 to 52 years ago now. And I just said, I'm gonna get a job here. And I just left the tour, went looking for a job. So there you go. I mean, I've always followed my heart. I've always sort of very whimsical like that. And I believe if you could think about something, if you could think about it, you could achieve it. That's really the way I believe.
I get the sense that, and this is to no one's surprise, that you're a very self-made man, that you've used resilience, you've used determination to get to where you are, and you had a purpose, you had a drive early on that sort of opened up doors for you as your career went on. That determination that you exuded, when you were just talking to me right there about here you walk into NBC for the first time, and you had these visions of what you wanted to do. Look, we all have dreams, we all have aspirations, but some, not you, don't know what it takes to actually fulfill those, or they don't have what it takes for you to be able to not only think it, but to make it a reality. Internally, what did that take as far as the gumption that you needed?
I just don't. I mean, I don't believe in no. I mean, I never have. My whole life. I didn't have an advantaged childhood. I grew up sort of, in many words, in a hard scrabble sort of environment, although my parents were very loving and they tried to be, where possible. Though growing up my house was an adventure for sure. My neighborhood was an adventure for sure. The kids I grew up with was an adventure for sure. And high school was an adventure. We could do this all day. Everything was an adventure and everything was a challenge in my life. But I just didn't believe in. I always believed that I would persevere and that I would say no, and I would, when I went to Abraham Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, and we had about 600 something kids in my graduating class, right? And I don't know where I finished, but let me put it this way. I didn't my SAT scores weren't very good, and I wasn't a really particularly good student. Although I believe I was very bright, I just wasn't a particularly good student, and I didn't really apply myself. I wanted to play baseball. I didn't really, things I didn't really care about. I mean, we could do this all day too, and and then in 2016. I gave the commencement speech at Abraham Lincoln High School. They invited me back for the commencement speech. So that's when I got up there and I said to the kids, I said, listen, I said, if I could stand up on this stage, let me tell you something. Any one of you, and I mean every one of you, and any one of you could stand up here and do this because I wasn't a particularly good student, and but you know what? I was not going to be denied. I believe that like I said, if I could think about it, if I could dream it, I could achieve it. And that's I've always felt like that, and I still feel like that to this day, all these many years later.
When you talk about that, I can't help but think about something that we discussed and something that you've talked a lot about. And that is, being a father and having a son go through a whole lot. And you say resilience and you say perseverance and what it took for you as a father to watch your son overcome cancer, where there were a lot of things in his path that were challenging. I see that from you in your determination, and no is never the answer. And I see it from your son. No was not an answer as in a way of saying, I am going to get through this. You're not going to tell me I can't. How did you see that at that very formidable stage of your family where your son and you and everybody got together and they said, we are going to fight this and we're going to win this?
Well, I just we never thought about the dark side of this. You just don't allow yourself because it's unthinkable. The idea that you could lose a child, it's that your father, anybody's a father or a mother, anybody's a child. The idea of them losing that child is unfathomable to you. It's not something you can fathom. You just can't. And I refused to. My family, my wife, Jenna, she refused. My other son, John Edward, who works, by the way, for NBC News, was out in the hurricane the other night. That's another story. But we just would not think about that. We were going to do everything we can to make sure that he came out of this on the other side and came out of it okay. And he believed it too, although there were very, very dark times. At one time, we brought him home and he became he had 105 and a half fever at one point, and we had to take him back to the hospital. And it's cancer is no joke. I mean, there's lots of terrible things that can happen to you in life, and cancer is certainly one of them. And but we believed we would get to the other side, and we that's where we met the people from Make-A-Wish, and they want to offer us a wish. And I told them I was very naive. I really didn't understand what Make-A-Wish was all about. And they told us, they said, look, it's not about. I said we have means. I can afford a wish. I don't. You give it to someone who can't afford it. And they said, no, it's not about that. It's about helping you and your family, and as well as your son, get through this terrible time in your life. It's the wish is for you to have it's a distraction. It's to take your mind off of and to focus on something else other than the pain and the peril that you're in as a family. So once I started to see it in that light, I started to realize what Make-A-Wish was about. I've been on the board of Make-A-Wish for many years, a national board for some years, a local board in Connecticut for all these many years now, since still involved in it. And it means a great deal to me and to my family. And but you just can't look. We all have darkness in our life. We all have things happen to us that we wish didn't happen to us, but that's life. Life is going to be full of these things, and some of these things are more challenging and more severe and more frightening than others. But at the end of the day, they're obstacles, and they're in front of you, and you can either give in to them and say, "I'm sorry, I'm going to be defeated by this," or you say, "I'm not going to be defeated by this. We're going to be fine. We're going to get through this, and we're going to give. You know what? We're going to set an example on how you get through this." So other people could look at it and maybe learn from it the way we had to learn from it.
You and your family, your son fighting through that darkness, as you mentioned. And when other elements of darkness comes into play for you, other challenges per se, what has been your way of attacking that in the way in which you've been able to overcome other trials and tribulations in your life in a way that you're able to get on the other side of that?
That's a very interesting question. I don't know there's a formula to this or not. I've just when I was a producer, which I was for many years in the truck producing events, sometimes the World Series, Super Bowl. I worked on some of the biggest events in the world. I was fortunate enough like that. And I never felt at any point that the moment was too big for me. I never felt like that. They always talk about like the athletes will tell you, and I'm not really an athlete, although I play one on television. No, I'm not really an athlete. I always believe that, if that the moment should slow down and you shouldn't get swallowed by a moment. And as a producer, I really enjoyed it when you'd have a big moment of ball, whether it was, Kurt Gibson or Bill Buckner, or, the Yankees winning in '96 and Boggs on the horse, and, and Joe Girardi's triple going around the bases, whatever. The McGuire Sosa thing in '98. I never really looked at any of those moments, and this is so many more. My God, I never really looked at them and said, these are singular things, and this is going to be a challenge, and I have to overcome it. And I've seen people in similar situations, just get swallowed by it. The fear of failure. I was never afraid to fail. I failed many times in my life. I'm not afraid of it. You learn from failure. That's how you become good at anything. Is you have to experience failure. You experience failure, you'll understand what it takes to succeed, because you can't succeed unless you failed. And you could put it in perspective. And I was able to put life into perspective very early on in my life. I went through some very difficult things in my life. Some I could share, some I really won't, but because they're so horrific in some cases. But I learned from it, and I just decided that I was going to live my life in a way that gave me joy and would be an example for maybe others to follow, others close to me. And look, I'm not a paragon of virtue. My life is not something that is put in a template and say, well, you need to have a life like this guy. No, but my life has been very interesting because it has led me down some very interesting roads, meeting some of the most interesting people, working on some of the biggest events and fun events. And I've just enjoyed it for what it was. And as I get toward the end of this ride, I don't believe I'm at the end of the ride. I believe that the end of this trail that I'm on right now is just the end of something. And the end of something is the beginning of something else. And I will go on to something else. I don't know what it is, and I believe I will go on to it. And I believe I'll be successful, because I won't allow myself to think otherwise. I just don't think like that.
And you won't allow yourself to get bored. Like
No,
that's yeah.
boredom. Oh my God, no, I can't. I will never be bored. I might be boring myself, but I will never allow myself. No, no, that doesn't work like that. No, boredom and I are not compatible. We're not compatible in that respect.
I want to be really respectful of something you talked about earlier, where
Sure.
obviously you said growing up, there's some things you don't want to share, and I
Yeah.
want to be very, very respectful of that. But that which you do feel comfortable sharing, and that you got on the other side of, how did that change you and help make the person you are today?
Just determined not to. I saw so many people fail. I saw so many people go through just terrible things. I grew up in a very difficult neighborhood. I just did. And, honestly, by the time I got through high school, I would say half the kids I grew up with were dead, just through gang things and other unfortunate things, circumstances. And I was not going to, I didn't have a great high school education, as I alluded to before. I wasn't a great student, but I was determined. I was determined to follow my dreams. And I believed in certain, I loved baseball. I grew up, my dad had a bar across the street from Evansfield, Field, and I grew up loving baseball. I mean, I was talking about Jackie Robinson, Carl Furillo, Preacher Rowe, Gil Hodges, Roy Campanella, Joe Black, George Schuba. I was talking about Carl Erskine. I was talking about those players, the boys of summer, many of them, as you know. I was talking about them when I was 3 years old. I would go to school, kindergarten, 4 years, whatever it was, and I would always talk about. And I remember the teachers would always tell my parents. They'd say, "He always talks about Uncle Charlie." Who's Uncle Charlie? Uncle Charlie's a curveball. They call it a curveball Charlie. So they'd say, his Uncle Charlie always talks about his Uncle Charlie. Well, that's a curveball, right? But I just grew up loving baseball, learning baseball, knowing it at an early age, and realizing that that was something that was somehow the fabric of my life was going to revolve around baseball. And it actually wound up happening like that, my professional life anyway. It really, I mean, I did many sporting events of many different sports, but the growing up around baseball, the fabric of baseball having that be such inculcated in my life the way it was, has meant everything to me. And I mean, I still get excited watching postseason baseball. To me, is the greatest thing in the world, watching postseason baseball. And when I've been through tough times, I've always was able to sort of, you know, get behind baseball, and it would be my way of coping with the world. My first interview at NBC when I got hired as a copy boy and I was making like $14 a day and I was doing that for a couple of months. It was a pretty dead end situation, right? But I didn't care. It was a way in, and I was determined I wasn't going to stay in that job. And so I got to know the sports guys. They would come in for their wire copy, and I would say, "Did you see that story like Frank Tanana, who's from Newport Beach, California? You got 17 strikeouts and whatever." And I would do their job for them because they would come in for the wire copy. I would give them wire copy. I'd point out certain stories to them, whatever. So they got to know me and they said, "You should be in the sports department." I said, "I would love that, but I don't really know anybody." They said, "Well, we'll do some introductions for you." So these guys, the writers from sports, sports was down the hall where I was on the fifth floor in the newsroom. Sports was right down the hall. So they did some introductions. So they got me an interview with Scotty Connell, the late Scotty Connell, and the late Chet Simmons, and they were running NBC Sports at the time, and later they went on to start and run ESPN, both of them. So they went on to other things as well. So I got to meet Scotty, who I loved. He was great. Scotty was a great guy. And so I passed muster with Scotty. So you know your stuff. You really know baseball. We'll see what we could do. We could get you maybe as a PA or start something we could do, some sort of start. And I was thrilled. I said, great. So I had to meet Chet. So Chet Simmons was a little harder nut to crack. He just was, you know. And he says to me, "So they tell me you know baseball." I said, "I do." They said to me, could you name the starting lineup of the 61 Yankees?" I said, "Can I name the starting lineup of 61 Yankees? How about if I said, if I name the whole team, will you give me a job?" He said, "You can't name the whole team." I said, "Yeah, I can." He said, "No, you can't." I said, "I can." He said, "Go ahead." I said, "Sure." I said, so we could do it now. I probably can't do it. Let me think. Bill Skowron, Bobby Richardson, Tony Kubek, Clete Boyer. That's first to third. Elston Howard, Johnny Blanchard, Yogi Berra were the three catchers, although some of them also played the outfield as well. We had Mickey Mantle, you had Roger Maris, you had Joe DeMaestri, utility infielder, you had Ralph Terry, Whitey Ford, Bob Turley, Phil Stafford, Louis Arroyo, Hal Reniff, Tom Tresh. Uh, let's see who else. Uh, well, anyway, you get the idea. Tex,
Yeah.
Tex Clevenger, forgot Tex Clevenger. So that's probably about 19 or 20 of them. And I used to name all of them, but fortunately I didn't do it right there. But you get the idea. So I rattled off all these names. And he says to me, "You missed one." And I said, "No, I didn't miss one." He says, "Yeah, there's supposed to be 25." And I go, "No, it's 20." In those days, it was 24 because they hadn't expanded yet. So it was 24. So he says, "Okay." I said, "We give me a job?" He goes, "No, I'll think about it." He didn't give me a job. Okay. But so, which is unfortunate, but it didn't work out. But anyway, I eventually wound up getting a job. So from sports, and I got to know Chet. He turned out to be a pretty good guy. But any which way. So I mean, again, I tried to make my own opportunities. I wasn't afraid to speak. I wasn't afraid to. I believed in myself. I believed in the people around me, and that's always been my mantra: to believe in myself and believe in the people around you. Because if you doubt yourself, I mean, not to say you're not going to make mistakes. We all have things that we regret. We all make mistakes, but I always looked at life it's sort of in a bigger scenario. I always believed that I would persevere to get to the other side of things, and I always like treated people with respect and dignity where I could. Some people didn't deserve my respect or weren't dignified, and such I wouldn't give it to them. But for the most part, I always gave people on first blush respect and dignity because I felt everybody deserved that. That's what I wanted in life, and I expect that I should give that to other people.
And that's why you've had such a great reputation in this industry, because as you were talking about, not everybody has that sense of having those kind of kinships with people and wanting people to succeed and creating that very much environment where you want everybody around you to get better. There's not this toxicity that we see in other cultures in the workplace, as far as in the industry of media. We see that all the time, but around you and everybody that I've talked to, you've always been striving for creating that warm environment where you're going to be real. You're going to want to expect the best, but you're going to be fair as well. And I know one thing about you is that you talked about this, and you said in this interview recently, you said you're good at one thing. Now, before I tell you what that is, I think you're better than just good at one thing, but this is what you said in this interview. You said you're good at one thing, and that is recognizing talent in other people. What gave you the radar to see people for who they were underneath the surface, to know that this is somebody I want, this is somebody who could take us to the next level when it comes to broadcasting, and it comes to creating that cohesive team around that?
That's my bandwidth. I mean, I remember I said you got to know what your strengths. So you have to understand your strengths. You have to also understand your weaknesses. You have to know what you're good at. You have to know what you're not good at, and you have to know what, instinctively. You have to follow your instincts, but you also have to realize what your shortcomings are. And one of my strengths is I'm very observant. I'm extremely observant, and I see things very quickly. I mean that's what as a truck producer, I was quite. I don't want to say I was quite good, but I'm going to say yeah, I was quite good. I'm going to say that
Yeah.
I was good. I was
Yeah.
good because I could see things that other people couldn't see, and it would be very immediate to me. I would be sitting in a truck and I could see things, and I would say, we need to we'll do this, 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 and this. I was very decisive. I wasn't always right, but I was very decisive, and I think my decisiveness and my confidence to lead that truck, to be in a position of leadership, which a producer is, a good producer is anyway, should be anyway. Um, that has always put me in good stead. I was always, when push came to shove, I was always a person people would turn to for an answer because I wasn't afraid to give one. I never waffled. I never sat there. Like I said, there weren't always the right answers, but I was never afraid to offer, to fill a void, to be that person that people turned to when they were in trouble or in help or needed a decision. Someone to they just could believe in, and that meant a lot to me as a person. That was always a talent that I had. I was fortunate, like I said, to have it, but it served me extremely well. The fact that I was observant, the fact that I was strong in my opinions, the fact that I would stand up to people. I would always stand up to a bully, by the way. I'll never kowtow to a bully. There's a lot of things in life I have respect for, the things I don't respect, and I do not respect bullies, and I don't respect people who try to intimidate, and don't respect people who live their life in a way where they just show lack of respect to other people. I think people are deserving of your respect regardless of what they do in life. I mean, I've spent hours talking to janitors, and there's nothing wrong with being a janitor. It's a profession. It's what you do, and people do what they do, and that's not for me to decide. But the people are people, and if you treat people with respect and dignity, they will treat you in kind, or they should treat you in kind. And if they don't, well, that's their problem. I think you always have to be honest about how you feel, and I think you should always call it as you see it, and I always have. And sometimes it's been to my detriment. I mean, I'll tell you stories about talent that I've battled with. Some of the biggest talent in this business I've had arguments with and differences of opinion with. I never 1 minute thought that, oh, while they are who they are, or this is Mr. X or this is Miss Y, and this would get me in trouble if I speak my mind. No, if I needed to say something, I said it. And some of those relationships who started out very, very, very almost toxic became turned on a dime and people became friends. Which like Tom Seaver was like my best friend in the world. He really was for many years. And first, but I knew him tangentially from the game of the week, and when I was doing baseball at NBC and stuff, so the last year NBC had the contract, 1989. This is a long time ago now. But so Tom gets hired, Garagiola gets dismissed, and so it's Scully and then Tom Seaver. And like I said, I knew him tangentially, but I didn't really know him that well. He actually lived in my town in Connecticut. So, but I would see him, and he would be a little aloof, and I didn't really have a great relationship, but it wasn't like terrible. We just didn't know each other well. And so we're doing our first game together. We're having a production meeting. As you know, this production meeting, you get 30 people, 40 people sometimes at a big show. And you go, okay, this is what we'll do for an opening. This is what we'll do in this situation. These are the graphics. These are the commercials. This is the promotions we have to read. You sort of take people through the show. You give them an overview. These are storylines we should follow, et cetera, et cetera. So Tom looks at me and goes, hey, how many Cy Young awards you got, pal? I got three. I should have four. No, this for like 40 people, right? Or 50 people, whatever. It's like, that's not nice, right? It's a little very, I was sort of like, I don't know. I didn't appreciate it, but was I going to start an argument with him there? I didn't. I feel it wasn't the time or the place. I said, I'll find my spot somewhere to sort of straighten this out a little bit, but it wasn't going to be there. So, okay. So that was kind of disrespectful, I thought. And everybody put their head down. Nobody said anything. And I said, okay. So about the fifth inning of the game, he says he hits the talk back. So that's where the talent could talk to the people in the truck or talk to me. And he says, hey, I need a shot, something. This is the Mets were playing. I think the Dodgers. I think that was the game, although I'm not sure. Um, and so I said, so I hit the talk back, the all button, so everybody could hear. Everybody in the entire compound could hear me. I said, "Hey Tom, how many Emmys you got?" I got nine. I should have 14. Well, that like you could have heard a pin drop. And then he started to laugh, and I started to laugh, and we became the best of friends. He went up and in on me, as we say in the baseball business, going up and in, right? The purpose pitch. I purpose pitched him back, and he got I got his respect. Okay. Once I had that, it was good. And he was a hard person to know. He hated being famous. He absolutely, some people can't stand it. Some people live for fame. That's all they care about. He hated being famous. He didn't want any part of it. He just wanted to live his life very simply. He was a very simple guy in a lot of ways. He was one of the greatest pitchers of all time, as you know, but a very simple person. And the fact that I would go back at him the way I did, I broke that, whatever that veneer was, that hard shell that he had it. He really did. It was like I got his respect, and we became incredibly good friends. And I really miss Tom to this day. I mean, he's one of the great people I've ever known. And like, I mean, I went through illnesses. He went through illnesses. He went through battle Lyme. I went to the hospital every day to see him, every day. And when I was going through my situations with my back and I couldn't move, and I was basically in the house for 4 months and I couldn't even move at one point. And he would come by every day to make sure that my wife Jen and or I that we whatever we needed, it was whatever we could possibly need, he would take care of for us. And he was that good a friend. And it was like it was incredible. If you go through your life and you have one friend like that, you should consider yourself fortunate. And I've had many good friends in my life, many good friends, many in the industry, but Tom was a very special friend to me.
When you were visiting him in the hospital, what were those experiences like?
Awful, because he was sick, and to see someone who was such a strong person, physically such an imposing, he was an imposing guy. You ever see Tom Seaver throw a baseball? Standing a mount, big burly guy, strong guy, the epitome of strength. And then to see him in certain, and he went through a couple of illnesses during our friendship, um, and to see him battle those things. Sheer will got him through it the first few times. They didn't really even know what Lyme was when Tom was first. I mean, they made many advances with Lyme through the years, but when Tom was diagnosed with, they didn't really even know exactly how how difficult the disease it was and how terrible it was and how insidious it is. And I mean, I've learned a lot about it through Tom, obviously having experienced it. And then he passed away from a couple of things, but one of them was there's no doubt the Lyme contributed to his passing. But he was just an incredible. But it hurts. It hurts when you care about somebody, care about anybody, to see them go through pain and trials and tribulations in their life. Especially someone like that. It was just a. I mean, again, when you had to know him, and he let very few people into his life. But if you got into his life, he was as special a person as you'd ever want to meet. Really was.
He was so close knit to you in your life. What does it take for somebody to feel like they're that to you?
Loyalty. Loyalty is very important to me. It's very important to me. I value it among the many human characteristics and attributes or whatever. I loyalty is right at the top to me. To have a friend, you have to be a friend. To have a friend, you have to be a friend, and that matters. Great, my friendships with people matter great deal to me. I don't want the things from people. I tend to be generous, sometimes to a fault about certain things. And there have been times I've been taken advantage of in my life because of that generosity. And I really resent that. And then when I see it, and like I said, I'm observant that I could sort of see it coming sometimes. And it's when I've been played, and I have been played, like we all get played, I guess, in life somewhere along the way. It really was very disheartening to me and very crushing to me because I don't treat people like that. And when I believe in loyalty, I believe in sincerity, I believe in honesty. I think those are really important qualities to have. I look for that in other people. I look for people of passion to be great. Who has, you ever hear anybody say, I have passion to be mediocre? Who says shit like that? Right? Nobody says that, right? Passion to be mediocre. No, no. You have passion. Your passion should be find a purpose for your passion. We all have it somewhere. Find something that really excites you about life and apply it. Make a difference in the world. I mean, stand for something, because if you don't stand for something, you're going to stand for nothing. That's what you want to do in life. I mean, I don't, not me. I'm not going there. I want to stand for something. I want to believe in something. And if I believe in things and I stand for something, then I'm going to make a difference. Walter Cronkite. I met Walter Cronkite many, many years ago, in the early stages of my career. Uh, it was I think it was Boston College. It may have been. I'm not even sure now. Well, so many years ago. But it was a seminar, and he was speaking at the seminar, and there were about 20 different people on this panel, all of them people of some renown. And out of 20, I was like number 20, right? That was like the 20th. And for Walter Cronkite would probably have been one, I would think. I don't know who could have superseded Walter Cronkite, who could have got higher billing, because it was Walter Cronkite. So someone asked a question about, like, what advice would you give if you're just, someone just starting out, right? We all get those questions along the way, right? And he said, make the business better than you found it.
Mm.
I thought that's pretty profound. Even then, it struck me, and I use it to this day. I give him credit. I don't take credit for things I don't do. But I said, Walter Cronkite told me, among other people, expected me directly, but it was a panel discussion. He was speaking to the students, and he said, make the business better than you found it. Have them look at you. We all cast shadows. Some of us large, some of us small shadows. Doesn't matter what kind of shadow you cast. Have them look at you and say, you made a difference. You made the business better, not worse. And I've met so many people who made this business worse. But I've also met a lot of people that made it better. And I always believed that I wanted to make a difference and I wanted to make it better. And to do that, I had to follow my heart and I had to follow my soul. It had to be me and just say what I needed to say. And, hopefully it was the advice, if it was advice, or the things I was saying would be received in a way which could make a situation better or make people better. Sometimes not always like that. I battled with some very famous people in this business, but I wasn't afraid. And I think that it hurt me. In some respects, at the time probably did, but I really wouldn't take any of it back. I don't walk back on things. It's like it was what it was. And I was honest and I expressed myself in a way that I felt I needed to express myself. So, I don't look for warfare and don't like warfare. I hate it. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to stand for what you believe and do what you need to do.
Being yourself, I feel like that's such an important tenet of who you are and has led you to do what you've done. But as you sort of hinted at, why is it so hard for some people to be themselves in this industry?
They're afraid. I mean, they have fear. They have fear of failure. They have fear um, of people have legacy, have fear of losing that legacy or tarnishing that legacy, and they'll do anything to protect their own legacy. We all have legacy. Any of us who've succeeded on any level at all. I mean, I have legacy. I know, but you know what? I'm not afraid of it. I mean, if I have to do something that I fear, but is honest and it's coming from my heart, and and it might hurt my legacy, I'm still going to do it because my legacy is important to me, but it's not so consuming and so important to me that it's going to supersede what I believe to be the right thing. And there are too many people who they're afraid. They don't want to be criticized. I mean, I will tell you, I mean, I've been watching the baseball playoffs, and
Mm.
Bob Costas is one of my best friends. I mean, I produced him for 9 years. While I was at NBC. I ended his career in some respects. I did, and I really care about him. He's a good guy. He really is. He's a very talented guy. But and he's made some mistakes and he's been under fire from the Twitter or the X, I guess it is now, the X people or whatever. And it's like, but Twitter's not your boss, X is not your boss. And we all make mistakes. And you make a mistake. You say you're sorry or you correct it as best you can and you move on. And people who don't understand that or don't experience that or don't respect that or are going to be critical because you made a mistake, well, honestly, are those opinions you really want to value? You're going to put above common sense. If you do that, then you know what? I'm sorry for you. Then you're really looking at life the wrong way. So you can't let those things bother you. You can't let criticism bother you. You can't. I mean, this is such a subjective business. My God, it really is. It's the most subjective business on earth is entertainment. Why do some people like one show and the same show somebody watches it and dislikes it? Why is that? right? We all like, oh, I love this actor, and I can't stand that actor. I really like that movie. I hated that movie. It's like, right? I really like the production that they do. I don't like the production they do on that. Okay, I mean it's subjective. You have to be your own barometer, your own judge of what you believe to be right. You have to follow that. You have to have certitude about who you are and believe in the people around you. I keep going back to the people around you. I mean, I've started three networks. Okay, we and all of them were like Mission Impossible without Peter Graves and Tom Cruise. I mean, it was like, are you kidding? It was like we had no time to do it. We had no, I mean, it was ridiculous, the circumstances of all of them, and yet we were expected to succeed. And yet every card that was dealt us said otherwise, but we succeeded in every one. Why? Because I put people around me who knew what they were doing, who I believed would could carry us and get us to where we needed to get. I mean, I put them there. Yeah, okay, thank you. You're welcome. But at the end of the day, their talents collectively is what got us where we got. I mean, you started the Yes Network in 4 months. We put a network on the air, and you could say, well, it's a regional network. Okay, you want to say that? We're a regional network in name only because I put our work against any of the major over-the-air national networks, and we're not going to take second place. We just don't. Or let me say we don't. The work, the caliber of worker we do, the quality of our productions, the people we have working for us, all suggest otherwise. We're not local. We're not local in any sense of the word. Maybe we are in name, but that's it. And I would never allow us to think otherwise. I don't believe in second place. I believe in first place. That's the only place I want to be. But I also realize that sometimes if you're gonna take some setbacks, you take your setbacks, you learn from them, with the idea that you take a step backwards, you're gonna take two forward.
The idea of you rising above cynics, I think, is a great example of that. Would be creating these networks where, as you said, not only were there people that doubted you, but also the lack of time that you had to put these together. And I would think, as much as you've done in this industry, as vital as you have been for so many people and for innovation and for the advancement of broadcasting, there's always going to be people, whether it's jealousy, whether it's just a naysayer. Essentially, what I'm getting at here, Flip, is that it's impossible to please everybody. You can be as the top of your game, as you said, because of the subjectivity in this industry. You can feel like you're at the top of your game, but there's always going to be somebody, for one reason or another, that's going to think something else about you. How have you not let that affect you? And you have been, at your core, staying the course, even when, as you said, there is this subjectivity and it's impossible. I feel like if we wanted everybody to like us, that we would be let down. And even if that's the case, you don't seem to listen to that noise.
I don't. I trust my judgment, and I trust the people around me. And that's it. Really, that's really what it comes down to. Is you have to have trust. You trust who you are. You trust you know what you're about. You trust who you are. You trust your track record. And not to say you can't make mistakes. If you make a mistake, you learn from it. But you certainly don't let it destroy you. You certainly don't run from it and hide from it. And you know what you do? I really like challenges. I welcome challenges. It's like, if you tell me I can't, that's the greatest motivator to me. It's like, okay, watch this, watch this. And I really believe that's one of the things that motivates me. A lot of people say it can't happen. It can't be accomplished. So this is really too hard to do or too difficult to do. You can't put a television network on the air in 4 months. Oh, by the way, it'd be hired the day before 9/11, which it was. And we had the backdrop of 9/11 when we started. Yes. Now, and it's horrific enough that everybody remembers 9/11, obviously, right? But in New York, the work in New York, or to try to work in New York against that backdrop of what had happened at the Twin Towers was just so horrific and um so surreal. And to try to hire people and get things done, we would put work together in any shape or form was like impossible. It really was. But yet we knew what we were faced with. I remember Ed Delaney, who was one of the great technical people I've ever worked with in this business. Ed and I I worked with Ed at a project called the Baseball Network, which was another of these Mission Impossible. Can you hear that phone ring? You know, that's a
Barely, a
refresh.
tiny bit.
I have to
You're
have
a very busy, wanted man.
well, I'm wanted for sure. I thought about business, but so anyway, that's we do this how long? This first joke I threw. I'm surprised at myself. Um, but the to try to accomplish anything against that backdrop was very daunting. And we had no time. We had people didn't were not of the disposition to even think about a project to pursue what as complicated as what we were faced with. I mean, we had no people, we had no mobile units, we had no people, we had no producers, no directors, no technical people, we had no infrastructure, we had no transmission, we had no distribution, we didn't have a thing. We had a yellow pad, and we had my imagination in the beginning, what and my experience, which said we need all of these various different things. And I filled up 41 pages of notes, back, yellow pad, two sides of notes of things that we needed, and realized that we had no time to do it. So I said to Ed Delaney, and I also hired Mike Webb, another really, really terrific technical, is still with me at Yes, with us at Yes. And the two of them, and I said, listen, you handle the technical side of this. I'll handle the editorial. I'll get the announcers. I'll hire the producer director. I will write, I'll use my book. I've written a couple of books on production manuals. I will use my manuals to, put this together. So make sure that we have the graphics and we have the music, and we have all the other staples that you need for production.
It's 1 o'clock.
I'll make sure that all those things get done. You guys handle the technical. I don't know how something gets from point A to point B. To me, it's always been a miracle. So you guys work your magic, be miracle workers, get us from point A to point B. So when we turn on the switch, it somehow magically appears in your home. That's your job. My job is to do the editorial part of this. I had to deal with George Steinbrenner, and Randy Levine, who I dealt with. And when I say dealt with, they're interesting people. They're demanding people. They knew what they wanted in many ways, but in many ways they didn't know what they wanted because they really weren't TV people per se. So that was left to me to put this network together in a way that was, and again, everybody was looking at it with New York Yankees. So there's an expectation that goes with that. We were totally in uncharted waters. There's another expectation that comes with that. And plus there was a war going on with the Dolans at MSG at the time, because with George buying taking the network back, or his rights back, and then the Dolans saying, "Well, good luck with that," and basically challenging George, and George saying, "Fine, I'll start my own television network," which is really what happened. So there was all that going on, and then they wouldn't carry us the first year we were on to give us a signal. So we had that to contend with, and we needed the Cablevision homes to succeed. We needed the distribution. We had the other places, we just needed those. And so this was like one challenge after the next, and we had no time to do it. The ticking clock was our greatest adversary as well. So, how do you make something like that work? If you don't believe in yourself and believe in the people that you're going to hire, the great news here was I didn't have to inherit somebody's culture. I could build my own culture. We could build the culture that I thought we should have. And that was one of the great things that to this day, Yes has been about that. It's our own culture. And although we've been acquired through the years and sold a couple of times, but we still managed to keep our own culture. We still have about 60-something% of the people who we started the network with are still with us to this day. And this is now 24 years later. So that says a lot. It says a lot that we're able to keep those people, and people move on, they do other things, but yet most of those people felt that they liked the environment they were in. They felt they were treated fairly, and then they enjoyed the work and they enjoyed the challenges that are part of regional television. I would say regional. We're not regional. I keep using that word. We're not regional.
You're not reaching.
Not that that's a sin. It's not. But we're not that. We are our own network, and we are our own what we are.
In what you just said, I feel like that sums up this conversation about what I was trying to get at. It's this belief in yourself and how that in itself can incentivize people around you to do the same, to accomplish things that from the outside, some people might think are impossible. You brought up Mission Impossible. And as we sort of wrap up this conversation, and I feel like there definitely could be a part two here, Flip, at some point if we wanted to do that, just because there's a lot of stories I'm sure that you have that we could also canvas later on. But that it just seems like you have this ability to get the best out of yourself, to, as you said at the beginning, to not let no influence you and to work around that. And then when people see that out of you, they gravitate towards you and they want to get the best out of themselves. And then you make things happen. You just make things, it just happens. and you just are a get it
Magical. It's
doneer.
magical. It's all magical. It's
It's
a
all
magic.
magical. It's all
It's
magical.
it's magic. It's really amazing how this stuff happens.
Well, it's been more than fun to have you happen to be a part of this conversation and be a guest on the Honest Living podcast. I'm Brian Fenley. Flip, John Filippelli, president of production programming, executive producer of the S Network. Such a fun conversation. Great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.